Now it's been a while since we've tied a true steelhead pattern on here, but I've got one for you today. And this one, called the Moody Blue, I found it in the Federation of Fly Fishers Pattern Encyclopedia, and in the book it was tied by a guy named Jack Pangburn. He's a tying instructor from Westbury, New York. Now the book doesn't credit him with having created this fly, and I couldn't find any information on the history of it, so unless I learn otherwise, I'm going to consider this a largely forgotten fly. Now for a steelhead fly, it's a pretty generic style. Got a thin body with a little bit of flash, pretty big thorax, and then a long collar hackle. And you can use this style for, any number of fly patterns out there. Of course, if you tie it with an orange hackle, you probably shouldn't call it a Moody Blue. And one other thing, does this fly or a pattern like this have to be just a steelhead fly? I'm thinking absolutely not. With the color scheme on this one, it would make a great smallmouth bass fly. Or put it on a streamer hook, and it could be a great fly for big brown trout. Now, I don't know why this fly isn't in more books and why it wasn't more popular, because I think it's a great looking fly and it's really got a pretty cool name. And I hope some of y'all will give this one a try and help us keep a largely forgotten fly alive for another generation or two. Let's give it a shot. So there we go in the vise. Pretty cool looking steelhead fly called the Moody Blue. I'm kind of digging these colors here. And I'm going to tie it on a size 4. This is a 3X long steelhead salmon fly hook. Get the barb pinched and get it in there. And I'm going to go, it's a pretty big fly, so I'm going to use some thicker thread. This is a 140 denier. I'll just catch it in, lay it a base about halfway back. Don't need to go all the way back just yet. So let's take our thread right back up here behind that area. See that bent over eye? You've got a little bit of a gap right there. And I'm going to catch in a small silver oval tinsel. I'm just going to catch it in right on the side, and maybe I can, minimize that little gap between that bend and then the rest of the hook. So let's just catch this in parallel, take it all the way back to the back end of our body. Okay, now park your thread about maybe a little bit more than halfway up. We're going to catch in some black floss. Now I've cut off about 7 or 8 inches of a black floss right here. It's not really to add much bulk, but it's going to color our body, give it a nice, dark black color. Now we'll trim that little nub right there in just a second. But let's go ahead and wrap this back with my goal of keeping it kind of flat. Okay, now let's catch this off up front. And if you did want a thicker body, yeah, you could certainly do that. You could get a tapered body, take another pass down and back up. You probably needed to have started with more than, 7 inches right there. But I don't really want a thick body. I just want it to be kind of colored that black right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap this oval tinsel. And whatever is your preference and how close together you want these to be, I think just evenly spaced, and on this size hook, 5 or 6 of them will probably look about right. Okay, 2 or 3 good tight wraps there to get that secured. Now let's snip this off and put some wax on the thread. Now the recipe calls for a blue SLF dubbing. I didn't have SLF in blue, so I'm just using straight up acrylic. This is my homemade blend from an acrylic yarn from my coffee grinder, and it's not a real buggy thorax, but it is pretty big. So I'm going to do maybe a 3-inch noodle right here, and then I'll probably have to do another one about the same size. Okay, I think that's going to be big enough. Now the first hackle we're going to catch in is a bright blue. This might actually be a kingfisher blue, but it's just kind of an aqua blue. And if you'll notice this feather, this is from a strung saddle hackle. You've got some of the webby parts where the fibers are stuck together, and then toward the tips, they're not stuck together. Grab a feather that has a fair number of the webby fibers. It's going to look a little bit better if you do that. It'll be a little bit more reminiscent of a wet fly with the webby fibers. And that's, it's it's a streamer, so you can get away with wet fly hackle on this. And for the blue, maybe we'll do 2 wraps and see how that's going to look. It might take 3, but we'll see. And they're going to splay out on you at first, but we're going to get them pretty well swept back before we're done. And I think that was 3 wraps right there. Let's go ahead and catch this one off. Do a little zigzag through there. Okay, now snip off this stem right here. I'm going to go ahead and push these back a little bit, take a couple wraps before I even catch in the next feather. Okay, that's going to be fine right there, but leave my thread toward the back and grab a feather that's very similar to that blue one, but this time in purple. So I've got a good number of the webby fibers right here, and I'm going to catch it in from the fat side because I do want, you know, some pretty long fibers for this big swept back collar hackle here. So let's just catch that in several wraps. Now snip off this stem. Now we'll wrap this one, and maybe 1 wrap more than we had with that blue. So I think we ended up with 3 in that blue. Let's do at least 3 for this one, maybe even 4. Okay, got 1 more. I think we're going to be in good shape. Let's catch this off, snip the excess, and then we'll worry about getting these swept back when we work on our head. Okay, how we do this, just try to grab them all, pull them back pretty tight, and ramp your head on back. And don't be afraid to go far back, pretty far back. I mean, it's a steelhead fly or a big fish streamer, and we want these pretty well swept back, so I think that's going to work right there. Now I'll just spend a few wraps building my head here. Okay, plenty of room here for a whip finish. Okay, there we go. Drop a head cement, make that head nice and hard and shiny. And that's it, Moody Blue. I think it's a pretty nifty little pattern, kind of cool looking. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.